ஆழ்வார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், பெருமானார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், பிள்ளைலோக்காச்சாரியர் திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம். ஸ்ரீ சைலேஷ தயாபாத்திரம் தீபக்தியாதி குணார்ணம தீந்திர பிரவணம் வந்தே நம்ம ஜாமாத்தரம் முனிம் ரம்ய ஜாமாத்திரி யோகீந்திர பாதரே காமயம் சதா ததா யத்தாத்ம சத்தாதிம் ராமானுஜ முனிம் பஜே லோககுரும் குருபிः சக பூர்வைः கூரகுலோத்தமதாசமுதாரம் ஸ்ரீநகபத்யபிராமவரேஷौ தீப்ரசயான குருஞ்ச பஜேஹம் लोकाचार्यवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगी संदष्ट जीव जीवातवे नमः। लोकाचार्य कृते लोकहिते वचनभूषणे तत्त्वार्थदर्शिनो लोके तन्निष्ठाश्च सुदुर्लभाः। जगदाचार्य रचिते श्रीमद् वचनभूषणे तत्त्वज्ञानं च तन्निष्ठां देहिनाते यतीन्द्रमे। श्री वचनभूषण दिव्य शास्त्रम. This is a beautiful composition, rahasya grantham by the most merciful piLLai. Out of his great compassion, piLLai documented all the most essential esoteric principles of our sampradayam in this wonderful grantham. In doing so, he has given us a great treasure. These are the principles which we Sri Vaishnavas must understand and try to practice in our lives. But this SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram, it is also glorified that it is very difficult to understand, to comprehend these principles fully, and even more difficult is to follow these principles in our life. To put them in practice, even more difficult. Manavana Mamnigal, the commentator of this particular Grantham, has also written a beautiful Tamil Prabandham named upAyaththukku. In this Pasuram, he says, ஆர் வசன பூடனத்தின் ஆழ்பொருள் எல்லாம் அறிவார் ஆர் அது சொல் நேரில் அனுஷ்டிப்பார் ஓரொருவர் உண்டாகில் அத்தனை கான் உள்ளமே எல்லாருக்கும் அண்டாதது அன்றோ அது. He says, who will know all the principles which are explained in SrIvachana bhUshaNam, and who will follow these principles as explained by piLLai. There are probably very few who are able to do that. That is the gist of the Pasuram given by Manavana Mamnigal. So, if it is difficult to comprehend these principles fully, and if it is difficult to put them in practice, why should we even attempt in doing so? That is the main question we will get. For that, we can see in our Guru Parampara, in the lives of our Purvacharyas, who lived an exemplified life, who followed these principles very clearly in their lives, and also taught these principles with great compassion. Even though these principles are difficult to understand and to practice, by constantly engaging in the words of our Purvacharyas, in the incidents from their lives which demonstrate such principles, we can also try to imbibe such qualities and practice them as much as possible, to the extent possible. It will not be a one day, it will not happen in one day overnight, but it will be a progressive change which will occur in every individual who carefully studies these works of Purvacharyas under proper guidance and also sincerely try to practice them as much as possible. For that, we need the mercy of Jagadacharya Bhagavad Ramanuja. That is the gist of the shlokam which we recited in the beginning. Two shlokams we recited. Lokacharya krite lokahite vachana bhushane tattvartha darshino loke tannishtascha sudurlabaha. The same shlokam is explained in Tamil. That is the Pasuram Bisa, Ar Vasana Budanathin, Alporul Ellam Arivar. These two have the same meaning. Lokacharya Krite Lokahite Vachana Bhushane and Ar Vasana Budanathin, Alporul Ellam Arivar. Those two have same meanings. Then there is another shlokam which we recited. These are part of the Taniyans which we recite for SrIvachana bhUshaNam Vyakyanam. Jagadacharya rachite Srimat Vachana bhUshaNe Tattvajnanancha Tannishtam Dehinate Yatindrame. This SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram, which was composed by Jagadacharya. piLLai Lokacharya is also known as Jagadacharya. Lokacharya, Jagadacharya, they all have the same meaning. The one which was composed by piLLai Lokacharya, that is SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram. The principles which are revealed in this SrIvachana bhUshaNam, Tattvajnanam, the real truth, knowledge on the real truth, and Tannishtam, the mind which is fixated on that real truth and the practice. All of these are prayed at the lotus feet of Yatindra. Yatindra means Bhagavad Ramanuja, Yatiraja. Dehinate Yatindrame. Please bestow that to us. That is the meaning of this shlokam which we recited. So such is the greatness of this grantham which we are now studying, which we are understanding with the help of Manavada Mamanigal's beautiful commentary. Manavada Mamanigal is known as Vishatavamani, one who gives the apt explanation for any subject he takes up. Whether it is Mumukpadi, whether it is SrIvachana bhUshaNam, whether it is Acharya Hridayam, or Alvar's Pasarams, whatever he has explained, he gives as much explanation which is required. It's neither more nor less. That is the speciality of Manavada Mamanigal and his commentary. Manavada Mamanigal is a great expert in both Sanskrita Prabandhams as well as Dravida, that is Tamil Prabandhams, both the grammars and the Itihasams, Puranams, and all of the literature, whether it is in Sanskritam or Tamil. Mamanigal is a great expert in all of these. He inherited the wealth of all our Purvacharyas by coming in the end of the Oranvali Guru Parampara, and Bhagavan himself accepted Manavada Mamanigal as his Acharya for this particular special quality. These special qualities are present in Manavada Mamanigal, which are greatly appreciated even by Bhagavan himself, and Bhagavan himself as Sri Ranganatha accepted Manavada Mamanigal as his Acharya. With the help of such Manavada Mamanigal's commentary, we are going through the meanings for SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram. This SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram is divided into 6 parts or 9 parts, depending on how this is viewed upon. Both views are acceptable. They are shown by our Purvacharyas. In the view of 6 parts, there is a shlokam which we again recite in the beginning of the recital of SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram. Purushakara Vaibhavancha Sadhanasya Gauravam Tad Adhikari Krityam Asya Sadguru Pasevanam Haridaya Mahetuki Guru Rupaya Tanchayo Vachana bhUshaNe Vadagurum Tamashraye. I worship such piLLai Lokacharya who bestowed us this wonderful SrIvachana bhUshaNam Divya Shastram, which brings out these 6 principles. What are those principles? Purushakara Vaibhavam. That was the first section which explained the first principle, which is Purushakara Vaibhavam, the greatness of Pirati. Pirati is greatly hailed as Purushakara Bhutha. Purushakara Bhutha means, in Tamil we say Purushakara Bhutai, in Sanskritam we say Purushakara Bhutha. Purushakara Bhutha means the one who recommends the Jivatma to Paramatma, so that the Paramatma accepts the Jivatma as an eternal servitor. That is the main role of Pirati in this world. Now, after we surrender to and after we reach Bhagavan, at that time, Pirati remains Bhagavan and accepts all our crimes. So, in the stage of upAyam, Pirati is having the role of Purushakara. In the stage of upAyam, upAyam means the path, the process. While we pursue Bhagavan as the means, as the upAyam, Pirati remains as the Purushakara Bhuta, one who recommends us and ensures that Bhagavan accepts us. Once Bhagavan accepts us, Then we are into the stage of upEyam, doing Kankaryam to Bhagavan. At that time, being the divine consort of Bhagavan, she remains with Bhagavan, just like father and mother remain together and accept our service, accept the service of children. Bhagavan and Pirati, they remain together and accept our service. So at the stage of upEyam, she is also one of the two recipients of our Kankaryam. There are two recipients, Bhagavan and Pirati, together receive our Kankaryam, accept our Kankaryam. So at that stage, she is in the category of upEyam. In the stage of upAyam, while pursuing Bhagavan as upAyam, she remains as the Purushakara Bhuta. So that Purushakara Vaibhavam, the greatness of Pirati, that was explained in the section. We saw that already. The next section talks about the second principle, which is Sadhanasya Gauravam. That is greatness of the process. Bhagavan is the upayam, sadhanam for us. Siddha sadhanam. Bhagavan is hailed as Siddha sadhanam. Siddha sadhanam means that which always exists. There is no time when Bhagavan ceases to exist. He is always present. He is waiting for us to come and surrender to him. So he is Siddha sadhanam. There are other sadhanams, other upayams, upayantarams. Those are karma yogam, jnana yogam, bhakti yogam, tirunama sankirtanam, divya deshavasam, purushottama vidya, avatara rahasya jnanam. There are so many different upayams which are shown in Shastram. All of these are explained in Shastram. Karma yogam, jnana yogam, bhakti yogam, all of these, they are known as sadhya sadhanam. That is, to make that karma yogam occur. The karma yogam as a principle exists, but for an individual, for that karma yogam to occur, the individual has to work on it. Only when the individual qualifies to engage in that particular karma yogam, first he has to qualify, and then he has to do the activities which are required to engage in karma yogam. Only at that stage the karma yogam will manifest. So the other upayams, the same example is applicable for all of these other upayams. Even Nama Sankirtanam, whether it is Purushottama Vidya, whether it is Avatara Asanyanam, all of these, the principles are there, but for an individual to make that work, the individual has to put some effort to engage in that particular activity, whether it is Karma Yogam, Jnana Yogam, Tirunama Sankirtanam, or Divideshavasam. Some activity must happen first. And then that particular upayam comes into existence. Until that time, the upayam is not existing for that individual. After that particular process, the upayam is pursued. There must be someone who grants the result. Who is that someone? Bhagavan is the someone. Bhagavan is the one who grants who bestows the result. So, for other upayams, the individual's efforts are required initially, and then while granting the result, Bhagavan's help is required. But for Siddha Sadhanam, Bhagavan as the upayam, Bhagavan is always existing. All we need to do is accept that Bhagavan is upayam. It is a mental activity. The individual at his mind level, he has to accept that Bhagavan is the upayam. That is all is expected from the Jivatma. And then, while granting the result, does Bhagavan need to search for anyone else to grant the result? No, he is readily available. He is willing to give the result. He is willing to give liberation and eternal Kankaryam for the Jivatma. So because of these reasons, Bhagavan is Siddham, always existing, always ready. Siddha sadhana means ready. It is like a simple example is ready-made clothing, stitched clothing. If you want to, in those days, nowadays people are not buying clothes and stitching, but there are two ways to get a particular garment. Whether you go and buy the cloth from the store, cloth store, and then go to a tailor and get it stitched. So there are so many different steps in that. Or go to a shop and just get ready-made clothing. So it is similar to Siddha Sadhanam and Sadhya Sadhanam. Bhagavan is Siddha Sadhanam. All other upayams are upayam. Upayantarams or Sadhyantarams. So in this particular case, Upaya Vaibhavam, that is Sadhanasya Gauravam, the greatness of Bhagavan as Upayam, is explained in the second section. And then there are other sections which we are going to see. We have now completed up to second section. In the previous session, we saw up to 79th Sutram. That concludes the second section, which talks about the second point, that is Sadhanasya Gauravam. Now we are entering into the third section, Tad Adhikari Krityam. What is that the Jivatma who is pursuing Bhagavan as Upayam has to do? That is the third section. Fourth section, Asya Sadguru Upasevanam, serving such teacher, such Acharya, who is showing us the path of this Bhagavan being the Upayam, showing that principle. Whoever is showing that path, that person, Acharya, how to serve such person. Generally, the one who instructs periya mantram, the Ashtakshara mantram, as part of Panchasanskaram is the main Acharya. And then there are Acharyas who give knowledge, who guide us in this path of liberation and eternal Kainkaryam. So, here, how do we serve the Acharya? That is the main principle which is explained in the fourth section. And then Haridayam came. Fifth section is talking about Bhagavan's eternal, costless mercy, unconditional grace. That is, fifth section talks about that particular principle. And then Guru Rupaya Tanchayo. Guru as the Upayam. We saw Bhagavan is the Upayam, but higher stage of that understanding is Bhagavan's lotus feet is Acharya, hence that Acharya is the Upayam for us. And Upayam and upEyam must be the same for us. Bhagavan's lotus feet is the means and his lotus feet is the end. So that lotus feet is Acharya. So Acharya is the means and Acharya is the end. That is the principle which is explained in the end. That is the topmost principle which is highlighted in this wonderful SrIvachana Bhushana Divya Shastram. So these are the 6 aspects which are explained in this particular Grantham, and we have completed up to the second part. Now we are moving on to the third section. That is Tad Adhikari Krityam. How is that explained? We are going to see them with the Suthrams of piLLai with explanation from Mamnigal's introduction, Mamnigal's commentary. So let us start with the 80th Sutram. In this commentary, Mamnigal gives an introduction to each of the sutras so that we know what is the context of the sutram, so that we can understand the sutram in a better way. Let us see the introduction first for 80th sutram. After explaining the upayam, the greatness of the Bhagavan, who is the upayam, after explaining that, subsequently, piLLai starts analyzing the person who is identified as a prapanna, as a sharanagata, one who surrenders to Bhagavan, accepting Bhagavan as the upayam. What is the nature of that person? How he should be? That is being analyzed here in the next section. Next category is that now, before analyzing the nature of the Jivatma, what is required for upayam? What is required for upEyam? That is first highlighted by piLLai in the subsequent sutrams. Because upayam, upEyam, first we have to be very clear with these terms. Upayam means the process, means the way, that is upayam. upEyam is the end, the ultimate goal, that is upEyam. Now, both upayam and upEyam are always discussed together because there is interlinking. Especially here, piLLai has established clearly that upayam and upEyam are the same. Bhagavan is the upayam, Bhagavan is the upEyam. Because of these principles, these both are discussed together. Now, for a person who is engaged in this sharanagati, now sharanagati is performed in our sampradayam using Dvaya Mahamantram. Dvaya Mahamantram is known as the Anushtana Rahasyam, what we practice on a daily basis. So for someone who is qualified to engage in dvayam, that is, we have to remember now that we discussed all of this in Mumukshapadi already. In the beginning of Dvaya Prakaranam, piLLai beautifully renders the qualities which are expected in a Sharanagata, one who is surrendering to Bhagavan, seeking eternal Kainkaryam. That is, புறம்பூண்டான பற்றுகளை அடைய வாசனையோடைய விடுகையும் எம்பெருமானையே தஞ்சமென்று பற்றுகையும் வேறு தப்பாதென்று துணிந்திருக்கையும். All of those we have already discussed in Mumukshupadi. There it was explained how the Sharanagata should have no attachment towards any other external aspects. He should have full faith towards Bhagavan. He should have full understanding, full confidence that he will get the result of eternal Kainkaryam. Though there is confidence, he should also crave, long for the particular goal, and so on. We saw all of those principles. For such person who is a Sharanagata, who is engaged in Dvaya Mahamantram, what are the aspects which are required in context of upAyam and in context of upEyam? That is being explained in this particular, in this next set of suthrams, with practical examples. Those who followed such qualities, those who had such qualities and who manifested such qualities, with such examples, piLLai is explaining this particular principles here, starting with 80th sutram. Let us see 80th sutram. upAyaththukku pirAttiyaiyum dhraupadhiyaiyum thirukkaNNamangai ANdAnaiyum pole irukka vENum. upEyaththukku iLaiyaperumALaiyum periya udaiyAraiyum piLLai thirunaRiyUr araiyaraiyum chinthayanthiyum pole irukka vENum. This is the sutram. In this sutram, piLLai is saying for upAyam. Now he just says upAyaththukku, that means for upAyam. But for upAyam means for the pursuit of upAyam. For one who is pursuing this particular upAyam. That is how we should understand it. For the one who is undergoing Sharanagati, undergoing Prapatti, he should be like Pirati, Sri mahAlakshmi, Sita Pirati, and then Draupadi, and then thirukkaNNamangai ANdAn. Three personalities are shown as examples here. And then upEyaththukku iLaiyaperumALaiyum periya udaiyAraiyum piLLai thirunaRiyUr chinthayanthiyum pole irukka vENum. For the upEyam, upEyam means here Kainkaryam, for the eternal Kainkaryam to Bhagavan, one should have such qualities which are present in iLaiyaperumal, that is and then periya udaiyar jatAyu mahArAja, piLLai thirunaRiyUr araiyar, he is an acharya in our sampradayam, and then chinthayanthi, a gOpikA who was greatly attached to Krishna. These four personalities are shown as examples for how one should be engaged in Kainkaryam, how one should be engaged in Bhagavad Vishayam. That is shown here in this particular sutram. Let us see this commentary. Mamnigal's commentary is brief for this particular sutram because this is going to be explained further in next sutrams where there will be elaborate explanation. So here, in these two sentences, basically there are two sentences here, upAyaththukku and then upEyaththukku. For upAyam, for upEyam, what are the qualities explained here, expected here? upAyaththukku means, so here it is just said upAyaththukku, as we saw before. upAyaththukku means for the one to qualify for such upAyam. If someone has to be a Sharanagata, what are the aspects which are in that particular Sharanagata? That is explained here. Similarly, when it says, when piLLai says upEyaththukku, that means for the one who is in pursuit of Kainkaryam, one who wants to do Kainkaryam, he must be like these personalities. That is the explanation given by Mamnigal. Next, 81st sutram. In this sutram, Mamnigal is giving the introduction here. He says, while showing how we should be like such personalities, first he starts explaining the nature of each one of them. What are their important qualities which are to be noticed here? So that particular aspects, that particular is being explored by piLLai. In that, in the 81st Sutram, he first explains the nature of Sri Sita Pirati and Draupadi. So that is being highlighted here. And in explaining that, he is now on the difference between Sita Pirati and Draupadi. First, that is the aspect being observed by piLLai. Pirattikkum, Draupadikkum Vashi, Shaktiyum Ashaktiyum. The difference between Sita Pirati and Draupadi is ability and inability. Sita Pirati has ability, Draupadi has inability. So that is the difference between these two personalities, says piLLai in this Sutram. Mom Nigal's commentary. Pirati, how is Pirati? What is her state of mind? What was her state of mind? Tattasya sadrisham bhavet. She said, it is not apt for me to try to protect myself. Even though I have the ability, I should not do it. It will be apt for Sri Rama to come and rescue me. It will be great for his valor to come and protect me, as he is my lord, as he is my pati. It is apt for him to do that. And then Draupadi said, Rakshamam Sharanagatam, you have to protect me. I am surrendered unto you. You have to protect me. Please protect me. Said Draupadi. For such Draupadi, she did not have the ability. She was a helpless woman at that stage. So the difference between those two is Sita Pirati was able to pacify the fire on Hanuman's tail. When Tiruvadi, Hanuman visited Sita Pirati, he goes on to create a rampage in the Ashokavanam and in Lanka, and finally Indrajit arrests him. At the time, they set fire to his tail, and then with that he causes further damage in Lanka. But when he was set fire, Sita Pirati knows about it, and then she orders Agni Deva, that you should not harm Hanuman. You should not cause any heat to Hanuman. You should remain cool. Shito Bhava means you remain cool. So she was able to pacify Agni Deva, and she was able to convince or order Agni Deva to not harm Hanuman. Such pity could have said, Dagdo Bhava, let this Lanka be burnt down to ashes, and she could have easily escaped from there and reached Sri Rama on her own efforts. She has the ability. Even though she had all of this ability, she did not do. But on the other hand, Draupadi, when she was dragged to the court, she could not help herself. Neither her husbands, that is Pancha Pandavas, would help them, nor the elders who were in the great assembly, they would help her. So she was in a totally helpless condition. She was in a very helpless situation, and she was totally unable to do anything. So that was her state. So this is the difference between Sita Pirati and Draupadi. Shows piLLai. So she did not have the ability to protect herself. Who Draupadi? But Sita Pirati had the ability to protect herself. Still, she did not protect herself. She waited for Bhagavan to come and protect her. So that is explained in this 81st Sutram. Is it audible? Are you able to hear? Is it audible? Okay, okay, sure. Okay. So that is the gist of this particular sutram, 81st sutram, where piLLai is explaining that Pirati was capable and Draupadi was incapable. So again, in analyzing the personalities and their state of mind and their abilities, uh, piLLai is determining this particular fact. Now, 82nd sutram, let us see that. Uh, Mamnigal gives an introduction, short introduction, brief introduction. Such Pirati and Draupadi and thirukkaNNamangai, what did they do? That is explained in this particular sutram, 82nd sutram. Pirati swashaktiyai vittal, Draupadi lajjayai vittal, thirukkaNNamangai swavyaparathai vittan. This is the principle which is shown here. What did they do? Each of those personalities, that is Sita Pirati, Draupadi, and thirukkaNNamangai. What are these personalities' actions which we have to understand here? That is highlighted by piLLai. Pirati Swashaktiyai Vittal. Pirati gave up her own strength, her own ability. Even though she is capable, she did not use her capacity. Draupadi Lajjayai Vittal. Draupadi gave up her shyness, her shame, and she completely surrendered to Bhagavan, giving up all her efforts. And in process, she lifted her hands and did not protect her. She did not think about what will happen if my clothes fall down, if my garment falls down, and if everyone looks at her without any clothes. She did not feel shy about it. She was totally surrendered to Krishna. And then thirukkaNNamangai, he abandoned all his activities. Now, all his activities with a catch. He abandoned the activities which are for his own protection. He did not abandon Kaikaryam. He continued to serve Bhagavan in many ways, but he abandoned all his activities which are for his own protection. He did not protect himself in any way. These are the actions done by these three personalities, says piLLai. Let us see Mamnigal's beautiful commentary here. Pirati Swashaktiyai Vittal, Draupadi Lajjayai Vittal. Swashaktiyai Vidigai, that is giving up one's own ability. What is that? That is explained here by Manawar Mamnigal. Now, though Pirati had the ability, she is the Nayaki, and Bhagavan is the Nayaka. Nayaka means the Lord, the hero, and she is the heroine, the one who is depending on Bhagavan. The hero or the Lord must protect the dependent, his divine consort. That is the rule, that is the nature. Because of this rule, if we violate this particular rule, if Pirati violates this rule and she herself protects on her own and destroys Lanka and comes back to Sri Ram, then what would have happened? Her Paratantriyam would have become damaged. Paratantriyam means totally dependent on Bhagavan. Paratantram, that is being fully dependent for every action. That quality would have disappeared if she protected herself. So that is what is highlighted here by Mamnigal. Because she did not want to lose her Paratantriyam, she did not do this particular activity of destroying Lanka and coming back to Sri Rama. So she gave up her ability. She had the ability to do whatever she wanted. She is the crowned empress of Bhagavan. She is the main spouse of Bhagavan, Mahishi. Still, having all the abilities, she did not use them because it is contrary to her Paratantriyam. And then Lajjayai vidigai. Draupadi gave up her shyness. What does that mean? What did she do? When Dushasana dragged Draupadi to the great assembly, at that time, initially she um, feels very shy. She feels very ashamed that she is being dragged into this court in front of all the great elders who are all there. Now she is also, we saw all of this before, that she was in her periods at that time. Usually during periods, women should not come out in public and should not meet others. They would remain in close quarters, taking sufficient rest and staying alone and just meditating about Bhagavan and so on. But in that situation, she was dragged. What a tragedy for her. She was in a great distressful situation to be dragged into the great court where great elders, gurus, um, fathers, father-like personalities, they are all present. At that time, she was dragged in by the evil Dushasana. At that time, though initially she tried to protect her chastity, she finally remembered that rishis instructed her long ago that whenever she was in a deep trouble situation, she should surrender to Krishna. So she immediately surrendered to Krishna and she said, Rakshamam Sharanagatam. I am a surrendered person unto you. You have to protect me. And she lifted her hands up and prayed to Bhagavan. She did not care what will happen if her clothes fall down, what will happen if she is looked at by everyone. She did not think about all of that. She lost her shyness totally and she fully depended on Bhagavan. And Bhagavan rescued her. Bhagavan protected her by giving endless garments. And Dushasana eventually became very tired and he gave up and he realized his mistake. And then she was let go. So, in this particular case, she gave up her shyness. That was a very unique act. That's a very special act of Draupadi. Here, Mamunigal brings out a very subtle point. These are the important aspects which are in commentary. He brings out an important point that even more than Pirati abandoning her own abilities and remaining fully dependent on Bhagavan, even more than that, Draupadi's act of giving up her public is a greater um, activity. It's a more cherishable activity, says Mamnigal. Why so? What is the reason for that? That is because Pirati is naturally omniscient. Just like Bhagavan is omniscient, Pirati is also omniscient. So she knows everything. She knows Bhagavan's greatness. She knows Bhagavan will come and rescue her anyway, and so on. Hence, there is nothing surprising that to uh, give up her ability and remain totally surrendered. But on the other hand, Draupadi is not such a greatly knowledgeable, not an omniscient person anyway. Still, she had the confidence in Krishna. That was the main difference. She had great confidence in Krishna, so she was able to um, give up her shyness and totally surrender to Krishna. So that particular aspect is greatly celebrated by Mamnigal also, that this act of leaving her shyness in front of the great assembly is a greater act of total surrender, says Mamnigal in this particular location, in this particular place. And then thirukkaNNamangai Andan, so Vyaparathai Vittan. This is an interesting incident from the life of thirukkaNNamangai Andan. thirukkaNNamangai is a Dividesham around the vicinity of Kumbakonam. There, Bhagavan's name is Bhakta Vatsala, one who is very, very attached to his disciples, his devotees, his followers. That Bhagavan has a beautiful temple in this thirukkaNNamangai Dividesham, and there was this person named ANdAn. His he was a very wealthy person, very rich person, very respectable person in the society at that time. He was once going around in his palanquin. At that time, he saw there was a fist fight between two persons, two soldiers. Now, the actual reason for their fight is one person, one soldier, beat the dog of another soldier. For that, the other soldier became very angry. The other soldier uh, became very angry and he started fighting with this particular soldier, and he wanted to kill that soldier. Not only he wanted to kill that soldier, he wanted to also kill himself, because he knows anyway that if the king comes to know about their acts, this person will be punished for murder also. So he wanted to kill himself as well. So this was going on. At that time, thirukkaNNamangai observes what is happening there. He gets a great realization at that time. He feels if a person can show such attachment to a dog, it's just a dog, and this particular dog has some attachment to the owner, and because of that attachment, the owner is showing so much attachment towards the dog to the extent that he is ready to kill himself. He is ready to kill the other person who beat the dog and also kill himself. Such is the attachment he has for the dog. Thinking about that, it dawns upon him, thirukkaNNamangai, that if a person can have such attachment towards a dog and can go to such extent of killing oneself for a dog, what will Bhagavan, who owns us, will do for us? And when we go and serve others, whether it is other devata, other guru, other personalities, other mortal beings, when we go and serve others, how will Bhagavan feel? Oftentimes, we get into situations where we think that how will this person feel if we do this? If we said this, what will they feel? So we are very, very careful about dealing with people. But at the same time, we also have to think about what will Bhagavan feel about our actions, whether it is day-to-day actions, whether it is particular action. Whenever we do anything, we should think whether it will be for the liking of Bhagavan or not. With that thinking, with that thought process only, we should work. That is what occurred in the mind of thirukkaNNamangai. If a soldier can go to the extent of killing oneself for the sake of his dog, what will Bhagavan do for us? Thinking about this, he said, I will not work anymore for my own protection. I will not try to make money for myself. I will not try to care for my house, my family, and any of that. I will just go to the temple and take a place in the fort around the temple and the wall around the temple. I will remain there, and then I will just continue services, whatever services possible for me to that Bhagavan in the Dividesham, in the temple. That was his choice, that was his decision, and then he went and did the same thing. He remained in the thirukkaNNamangai Dividesham temple itself in a corner and was just doing service. Some people misinterpret this. They say that we have to give up everything, we should not engage in any action. That is not the case. We have to do Kainkaryam. We are going to see in subsequent Suthrams that a devotee, one who is completely surrendered to Bhagavan, will engage in all Kainkaryams, but he will not even lift a small thing to protect himself. One should not do even the smallest, tiniest of the efforts for one's own protection, but do everything for Bhagavan's Kainkaryam. That is what thirukkaNNamangai also did. In many other Vyakyanams, it is shown that thirukkaNNamangai continues to serve the Bhagavan in Devidesham, like sweeping the floor, sweeping the temple and keeping it clean and so on. Whatever Kainkaryam he is allowed to do, he was always engaged in that Kainkaryam, and rest of the times he was always meditating about Bhagavan and was constantly engaged in that particular thought process. So Swarakshana Vyaparam, whatever activities which are for one's own protection, one's own care, to care for one's own body, all of that action should be given up. Everything should be done as Kainkaryam only. That is that can be seen in the life of thirukkaNNamangai. That is explained in this particular sutram. So that is 82nd sutram. Now 83rd sutram is a big sutram. There is a fair amount of explanation. Let us try to cover that today. Now After explaining the qualities of a few personalities who are ideal examples for how to pursue Bhagavan as upayam. So, in all of these three cases, what is to be understood? Usually, when we have these examples, we remember the example, but we sometimes tend to forget what is the message, what is the underlying principle which is explained. The explained principle is for the pursuit of the upayam, Bhagavan as upayam. While doing that, one should give up one's own ability in protecting oneself. One should not have any shyness, and one should not engage in any activity which is for one's own betterment, whether it is spiritual or material. It is Bhagavan's responsibility to take care of the individual in full. That is, that is the main principle which is to be understood in how an adhikari for upayam will be. That is explained in this few sutras. Now, next is upeya adhikari. Upeya adhikari means those who are qualified to be called as good examples for upayam, engaging in kainkaryam, who are all good examples, ideal examples for kainkaryam. That is being explained in this particular sutram. First, he talks about iLaiyaperumal in this 83rd sutram. Next sutram, he talks about the other personalities. In this 83rd sutram, iLaiyaperumal means Lakshmana. Sri Lakshmana is being glorified here as the best example of Kainkaryam. We all know Lakshmana is incarnation of Adishesha. Adishesha is known to engage in all kinds of Kainkaryam. Alvar says, சென்றால் குடையாம் இருந்தால் சிங்காசனமாம் நின்றால் மரவடியாம் நீழ்கடலுள் என்றும் புனையாம் பூம்பட்டாம் புல்கமனையாம் திருமார்க்கு அரவு. That is Alvar's Pasuram. Same thing is available in Stotraratnam also by Alavandar. Nivasaya, Asana, Paduga, Amshika, Upadana, Varana. In this slokam, he says Adishesha is all kinds of servitor for Bhagavan. So it is natural that he will be counted as the first servitor, first example for Kainkaryam. That will be Lakshmana always. That will be Adisheshan always. So his nature is explained in this particular sutram. Sutram is big, but let us see the gist in the Vyakyanam. பசியராயிருப்பார் அட்டசோறும் உண்ண வேணும் அடிகிற சோறும் உண்ண வேணும் என்னுமா போலே காட்டுக்கு போகிற போது இளைய பெருமாள் பிரியில் தரியாமையை முன்னிட்டு அடிமை செய்ய வேணும் எல்லா அடிமையும் செய்ய வேணும் ஏவிக்கொள்ளவும் வேணும் என்றார். படை வீட்டில் புகுந்த பின்பு காட்டில் தனியிடத்தில் ஸ்வயம் பாக்கத்திலே வயிற்றை பெருக்கினபடியாலே உப்பூன் உண்ண மாட்டாதே ஒரு கையாலே திருவன் கொற்ற குடையையும் ஒரு திருக்கையாலே திருவன் சாமரத்தையும் தரித்து அடிமை செய்தார். This is the sutram. In this sutram, how Lakshmana remained in Kainkaryam is explained. First, an example is given. A hungry person, very hungry person. That person will usually think that he would want to eat the food which is already prepared and the food which is being prepared in the kitchen. He would, if someone is very, very hungry, he would say, I will eat what is already prepared and I will wait for some more, whatever is being cooked. I will wait for that also and I will have it. That is the example given here. Similarly, Ilaya Perumal, Lakshmana, is also not satisfied with just one Kainkaryam. He is always eager for more and more Kainkaryams. That is the point being explained here. How is that explained? Kartika Pogira Bodhi Ilaya Perumal. While going to the forest, that is, Sri Rama and Sita Pirati decided to go to forest. At that time, iLaiyaperumal, Lakshmana also goes and says to Rama that I would come to forest along with you to serve you. Initially, Rama does not accept it. He says, no, you have to stay here, take care of our parents. For that, iLaiyaperumal is not accepting it. He is insisting that he wants to come along. Then Perumal accepts. So that is explained here. While going to forest, Kartika Pogira Bodhi, iLaiyaperumal piriyil தரியாமையை முன்னிட்டு, showing that he cannot sustain in separation from Sri Rama. He says, I want to perform Kainkaryams, I want to perform all types of Kainkaryams, and not only I want to do it on my own, but I want you to order me and engage me in Kainkaryams. That is how I should do Kainkaryam. He said that. And then he did all the Kainkaryams when he was, when Sri Rama and Sita were in the forest. After that, when they returned to Ayodhya, the capital, படை வீட்டில் புகுந்த பின்பு காட்டில் தனியிடத்தில் ஸ்வயம் பாகத்திலே வயிற்றை பெருக்கிறபடியாலே, because he fully served Sri Rama and Sita Pirati in the forest 24 hours 14 years he was fully serving. Because of that, just like தனியிடத்தில் ஸ்வயம் பாகத்திலே வயிற்றினை பெருக்கினபடியாலே, it is like for example a bachelor life. If a person is living alone, he would cook. Let's say we have to make 1 cup of rice. We make 1 cup of rice. Now we really need only 3/4 of cup of rice, but we just casually put a little bit extra rice, and then once it is cooked and we offer it to Perumal, and then now we see it is a little bit more than what we can consume, but we say, oh, there is no one else to eat at home, so let me just finish that. In this manner we keep increasing the quantity of the rice, and we consume more and more when we are alone. That is an example shown here. Similarly, because Sri Lakshmana spent doing all sorts of kankaryam when they were in forest alone, when Pirati and Perumal were only there in the forest, because he increased the size of his stomach, he increased his appetite for kankaryam so much. Now he cannot serve just as much as others do service to Bhagavan. This is similar to someone who ate a lot when he was alone. Now he is, let's say, is back in the family. At that time, he will not eat the same amount as others. He will want more. Similarly, here also, Lakshmana being alone and doing all kinds of service, he is used to that. Now, even after returning to Ayodhya, he holds the umbrella in one hand. In his one divine hand, he is holding the divine umbrella, and in another hand, another divine hand, he is holding the chamara. Chamara is like the fan. So he holds both in both of his hands and serves Rama. That is how much he wants to do service. He is not just taking one Kainkaryam, but he is taking more than one Kainkaryam, and he is serving Sri Rama. So that is the nature of iLaiyaperumal. So this is the way we should be. So all of these examples are for us only. We think that, oh, these are nice narrations, let us hear and just move away. That is not the point. The point is we have to understand that these are all desired qualities for us. So we should also crave for more and more Kaikaryam for Bhagavan and Bhagavatas. That is highlighted here. So Mamnigal's commentary, he is explaining whatever we have seen. So one who is hungry, that's hungry person, he will consume more and more. He will consume what is present already in his plate, and he would want to have more and more because he is so hungry. Similarly, Ilayyaperumal served Bhagavan Sri Rama while he was in forest, and he served quite a bit. Because of that, he starts craving for more and more Kainkaryam. That is the principle here. Now, while going to so here Mamnigal explains how from childhood Lakshmana was eagerly engaged in Kainkaryam and had great attachment to Sri Rama. Even when he was a toddler, when they were put in different cradles, Lakshmana did not feel happy. He started crying, and he kept crying until he was placed in the same cradle as Sri Rama. So such was the intimate brotherly attachment towards of Lakshmana towards Sri Rama. When such Rama started leaving to forest, at that time Ilayyaperumal, Lakshmana, comes to Sri Rama, holds Sita Pirati as Purushakaram, and he requests Sri Rama to accept his Kainkaryam and let him follow him to the forest. So that was his prayer. Many pramanams are highlighted, but we will skip the pramanams because those can be seen in the explanation given in our website also subsequently. But here, Kurushamam Anusharam, some important portions will be highlighted here. Kurushamam Anusharam, I will follow, you let me do that. So first he prays for that, and he says, Nachasita, after following Sri Rama up to the shore of Ganga, at that time, again Sri Rama tells Lakshmana, no, you have to go back to the Ayodhya. You have to stay there and take care of our family and so on, parents and so on. At that time, iLaiyaperumal, Lakshmana says, Nacha Sita Tvayahina Nachahamapi Raghava Muhurtamapi Jivavo Jalan Matsya Vivodhrutau. He says, just like a fish cannot sustain outside water, Sita Pirati and I cannot sustain without you. So he places himself along with the same level of Sita Pirati in not separating from Bhagavan. So that is explained here. And then, even while Sri Rama ordering iLaiyaperumal to engage in Kaikariyam, at that time also he says, I want to do Aham Sarvam Karishyami. I will do all kinds of Kaikariyam. That is Ella Adimayum Seyya Venum. That is being explained here. I want to do all kinds of Kaikariyams for you. Bhavamstu Sahe Vaidehya Giri Sanushu Ramsete Aham Sarvam Karishyami Jagrada Swapataschate. He says in this particular slokam that I want to serve you and Pirati together in whichever ways you want. And it is as per your orders. I don't want to do it do that as per my willing, my interest. Because when Sri Rama says to iLaiyaperumal, to Lakshmana, that you should build me a hermitage, you should find a good place where there is sufficient water and shade and so on. You should build a hermitage. At that time, Lakshmana starts crying. Why is Sri Rama placing this big responsibility on my head? Why should I go and choose the place? It is his responsibility. He should choose the place which is desirable for him, and then he should tell me, this is the way you should build the hermitage, this is where the guest room should be, this is where the kitchen should be. All of that should be ordered by Bhagavan, and then I should do it. That is how I should be, says iLaiyaperumal, Lakshmana to Sri Rama. So that is the that is the state of mind of Lakshmana, that he constantly served Bhagavan when he was in the forest, when he was in exile. And then when Sri Rama and Sita Pirati and all of these, everyone returned to Ayodhya, at that time, because he used to doing so many Kaikariyams at once, iLaiyaperumal, Lakshmana, held Chatram, the umbrella in one hand. Chatram is an indication of a great emperor. So Sri Rama is having the Chatram. And then he was also having Chamara, this small fan, hand fan, which is used in Kaikariyam. He was having both of those in his hands and he was serving that. Now, a particular analysis is done by mahAlakshmi in this section, in this Vyakyanam, in this particular Suthrams Vyakyanam. He analyzes where is it explained in Sri Ramayanam that Lakshmana did this service with Chatram in one hand and Chamaram in another hand. Where is that mentioned? He analyzes that and he explains that there is one place where it is said, but that is not what piLLai is referring. There is one place where at the time of original announcement of Pattabhishekam, crowning of Sri Rama as the prince, at that time, when Sri Rama comes from his palace, at that time Lakshmana was doing this kind of service. That is, one hand holding an umbrella and another hand he is having chamara. But that does not suit the situation explained here. This is after returning to Ayodhya. That is the explanation given by piLLai. So, after returning from the forest to Ayodhya, mahAlakshmi analyzes, has this ever been mentioned in anywhere in the Shastram? And then he finds a reference in Padma Puranam, a detailed narration of the situation of Pattabhishekam, who are all present. There is iLaiyaperumal, that is Lakshmana, that is Bharatalvan is there, Shatrughnalvan is there, and then Sugriva mahArAja is there, and then vibhishanalvan is there, and then Hanuman is there. In this manner, all of these personalities are listed and their Kaikariyams are highlighted. What are all being done by every one of these personalities during the Pattabhishekam, the crowning of Sri Rama as the king, emperor of this Kosala Desam. At that time, in that Padma Purana Shlokam, it is explained, Chatrancha Chamaram Divyam Dhritavan, when explaining Lakshmana's Kaikariyam, in that Padma Purana Shlokam, it is explained that he is having Chatram in one hand and Chamaram in another hand. So, based on this reference, piLLai is mentioned because it is important for us. It may be sufficient to say that, oh, in Ramayanam there is one place where he holds Chatram and Chamaram. That is sufficient, is it not? We may think like that, but our Acharyas are always great Pramanikas, very, very authentic. When they say a particular word, there will be a pramanam, a reference for that in Shastram. Without that, they will not speak even a little sentence, even a few phrases, they will not say. So, Mamunigal goes and searches for such reference and aptly highlights the Padma Purana Shloka and explains that lakhsmaNa did the Chatra and Chamara Kankaryam after returning to Ayodhya. So that is explained in this particular sutram, that is 83rd sutram. Now 84th and 85th I thought we will be able to see, but we are already past the 1 hour limit. So we will stop here today. We'll continue on in the next session. Next session will be tomorrow. We'll have it at the same time, 12 o'clock. I think this is a little bit convenient. We'll have it at 12 noon and 12 to 1. Similarly, we'll have and we'll see the next set of suthrams tomorrow. ஆழ்வார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், எம்பெருமானார் திருவடிகளே சரணம், பிள்ளைலோக்காச்சாரிய திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம். If there are any doubts, that can be. If not, if there are no doubts, we will just end the session. Okay, we'll recite Pallandu and then complete the session. Pallandu, Pallandu, Pallayavattandu, Palakodi, Noorayiraman, Mallandu, Tindormani, Vannavum, Sevadi, Sevithirukkaappu, Adiyomodum, Nodum, Pirivendi, Ayiram, Pallandu, Vadivayanam, Marvanil, Chinthayanthiiyum, Pallandu, Vadivar, Sodhi, Valathriyum, sUthrams, Pallandu, Padakot, Kumarangam, Appanjasanniyam, Pallandu. Okay, there is one doubt. Are you able to hear? Yeah, okay, please tell. You are not audible. I am not hearing. Are you able to speak? Are you hearing? Are you hearing me? Okay, maybe there may be some issue. You can send a WhatsApp message and get the doubt clarified. I am unable to hear you totally. Okay, we'll see tomorrow. At 2 o'clock, we'll have Gita class anyway. ANdAn.